is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. We want to say thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. And remember, we're free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate that. That helps other people find out about all the greatness and goodness that is going on right here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. We got a lot of good conversations for you today. And we're going to start off with Max Fried. Should he be rising in the Cy Young conversation? Then we're going to talk a little bit about the Falcons. They made some cuts yesterday. They listened to the show. Ooh, we'll tell you exactly why we would say something crazy like that. And last but not least, and for the culture, Kevin Durant decides to come back. Who won in this situation, if anybody? But first, we got to talk about the Braves last night. Max Fried doing his absolute thing, dealing on the mound. They win 6-1. T, the way Max Fried was just pitching, and it seemed like you can just kind of tell by the way he was getting guys out. He had a plan, and he was executing that bad boy to the T. No pun intended.
Yeah, no question. Max Fried was on one last night. I mean, just the excitement was one of the key pieces there, as we talk about all the time, is the preservation of the bullpen. So anytime you can get your starter to go 8 innings, and that's 8 quality innings, we're talking about 1 run and 3 hits in 8 innings. Unbelievable job that Max Fried did in just his second time of going 8 innings this season. So yeah, I was excited about that. And thankfully, Colin McHugh in his 1 inning was able to strike out 2. Exactly. He went sniper style, and we're all set. And listen, we breathed a sigh of relief much sooner in that game than we did just the night before, right? Game 1 was a little bit tighter, but really this game, other than the 1 run that Fried gave up early in the second inning, once you got to the 5th inning and you rally off or rattle off 5 runs, oh, it's a wrap. It's a wrap, and it was.
Yeah, just from Vaughn Grissom to Michael Harris. We'll talk about some of those guys as far as just what they're doing and how they're able to execute at the bottom of that lineup. And you don't necessarily see that in Major League Baseball. Before we talk about that, T, tell the folks about what BetOnline.net has for all the Locked On listeners and viewers.
Yeah, so it's interesting because, right about now, we are starting to hear, as we ramp up for week 0 of college football starting this Friday, you're starting to hear more and more buzz about Heisman favorites. And right now, CJ Stroud is standing above the heap. But there are a lot of bettors who are starting to take action on Will Anderson Jr. So if you want to know where CJ Stroud is, well, Will Anderson Jr. is in the mix, or if Bryce Young will actually be a repeat Heisman Trophy winner, betonline.net is where you go for all of that information, all of the betting trends, and just any developments in college football, and for that matter, in the NFL, NBA, MLB, you name it, they have it. Listen, the Braves have gotten this lead down to just 2 games against the Mets. So right about now, with under 30 games left, will they, won't they take over NL East? Well, again, that's the information you would get from betonline.net, because that is absolutely where the game starts. So if you're talking about wanting to get a better understanding of what's going on, they've got podcasts, they've got expert analysis, and it's really simple to get to. So as always, ATL Day Ones is your first stop. But as soon as you wrap up our great program, the next thing you need to do is go to betonline.net.
Yes, make sure you do that because it is essential to life, just like water. T, I think one of the things that we have, I think once Michael Harris came into the fray, that 9th spot in the batting order has been absolutely amazing. I'm talking about 78 RBIs, excuse me, and from that 9th spot in the order. And I just think that when you get that type of production from that spot, I think you are a very dangerous team. And I think that we saw that last night. And that's something that is going to definitely help the Braves get to the point where you don't want to face them once the playoffs gets rolling.
Indeed. And the interesting thing is this. Of course, we were all excited when Michael Harris II was put in that 9 spot, right? And then when the Braves announced that they were bringing up Vaughn Grissom, it's like, no, don't move him H2 out of the 9.
Right.
But then they put Grissom in the 9 spot, and it's like, well, dang, homie, if we knew you were going to do it like that,
You're batting 420. That's just a little modest.
If he had 130 games under his belt, we'd also be talking about a third option for NL Rookie of the Year from one squad, that being the Braves, but he doesn't have 130 games. So now you're moving Michael Harris II up to the 7th spot. You're moving Grissom up to the 8th spot. And why? Because now you can put Robbie Grossman in the 9th spot.
Nasty man.
It's like crazy. I mean, it's just crazy to think that that you can keep doing that, like you said, at the bottom of the order. And when you talk about the fact that the Braves are not just leading in the National League, but we're talking about the majors across the whole of baseball, in home runs,
whole freight.
runs, and RBI from the 7th, 8th, and 9th positions. That is so very exciting, because the other thing, low key, that these players are also able to do for the Braves is give them versatility in the outfield. That's always a beautiful thing as well, just to know that you have that versatility from a defensive perspective, and you don't lose anything when they are up at the plate.
Yeah, and that's the key to success, right? When you talk about what moving around, making the necessary moves. We talked about Brian Snitker on this show continuously, and we will continue to do that. And I think that that's something that Brian Snitker has been able to do, and he's been making the right decisions, because when you think about bringing all of these guys up, it had to be part of the master plan from the wizard himself, Alex Anthopoulos. And I think that when you give your manager these tools, you expect him to do the right thing, and that's what Brian Snitker has done whenever the situation has come about. And I think that when you have those situations and they come up and you make the right decisions, and now you're trying to sit up and to say, okay, there is a guy that's coming, back, Ozzie Albies, right? So how can we keep this dude that just came up and Vaughn Grissom, like, all right, so how do we keep him in the lineup? And what, I'm going to expect Brian Snitker to make the right decision again. And because when you're on 13 out of 15 9 straight on the road, like, you got to start thinking about, okay, about the chances of the Braves actually catching the New York Mets, even though that schedule kind of favors the Mets a little bit.
It does, because you're looking at a Braves schedule. And actually, when you think about it, and I said 28, but it's actually 38 games in the season, if you will, 37 games at this point by the time the Braves end today. But they do have a tougher schedule. 25 games are against teams that are over 500. So you're talking about teams like, of course, the Mets themselves, right? And then you look at the fact that they only have 13 against teams with sub 500 records. Now, the Mets, on the other hand, they're just the opposite. They have just 10 games against teams above 500 and 18 against teams that are over. So that's the thing that is concerning to me, the fact that, like, the schedule does kind of favor the Braves. But what I do like is this. The Mets are swooning right now. It's not just that they've lost these last couple of games to the Yankees, but they've really gone about 4-6 in this last 10-game stretch. So there are some chinks in the armor that are starting to come, that we're starting to see with the Mets, which is perfect timing, by the way, as the Braves get set to go back up to Queens for the final time this season. This is the perfect time for the Braves, on the other hand, who, like you said, 13 to 15 games, and more importantly, because they're going back up to Queens, that it's 9 straight games of wins on the road. And we, of course, expect them to do that in the next round of games, I believe, with the Rockies. So I believe the Braves are trending in the right direction, and maybe, Jarvis, more than at any other time this season, I believe that while the schedule is a factor, I still believe the Braves have every opportunity to catch and surpass these Mets.
I totally agree. Because just by the way they're playing, right? Because I don't necessarily schedules, it matters, but it really doesn't to me. Yeah. I look at how teams are playing towards down the stretch. And we talked about the bottom of the lineup. We talked about how your aces absolutely dealing, almost complete, you almost had to really consider whether or not you were going to bring him out for the ninth to try to get a complete game.
Right.
The way he was pitching, like I thought that was a real thing. So you just looking at all those different factors, and then you're starting to get healthy as well. So all those three factors are just like, all right, I don't care who the Braves are playing because I put my money on the Braves against anybody in the league, the way they're playing, the way who they're getting back, and just the way that pitching staff is going, because we know how really important that pitching staff is once you get into the postseason. So I'm not concerned, but I think those are some of the things that we'll definitely have to keep an eye on as they finish up the series against the Pirates. And the Braves, hopefully they get that sweep, because hey, that's what we expect, and that's what they've been doing as of late. Now, as far as expectations and surprises, the Falcons made some cuts. I know there were a couple of guys on there that we kind of figured would happen, but we're going to talk about maybe a potential surprise on a guy who didn't make the 80-man roster cut. We'll talk about all that next right here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. This is ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and T. We'll be right back.